There is a commonly misattributed quote, one that I think many people may know. All that is required for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. If nothing else, remember that this sentiment is what drives this video. Though I wouldn't necessarily call myself a good man, I am trying to do something to prevent the triumph of evil, despite my shortcomings. Additionally, this is not some sort of call to action or some sort of statement of a change in my position concerning the larger issues surrounding Vic Mignogna. I have made no secret that I support Vic in his struggle to throw off the allegations that have no evidence behind them, and I have interacted with the man to find that he is a genuinely kind and caring person. Furthermore, his fan club, the Risembool Rangers, are genuinely kind and caring people as well, despite what detractors may say. However, you can still find people kind and caring while also finding fault with wrongful actions they take. And this is the crux of my position. I am criticizing these wrongful actions, not the character of the people. Finally, as a full disclaimer, I am personally friends with both members and moderation within the Risembool Rangers. Some may claim that this colors my position, and I will be the first to admit that there is possibly merit to that claim, though I will still attempt to remove as much bias as possible from my statements. Furthermore, this is my own understanding of the events as they occurred from my limited pool of information. Some of these things have been obtained secondhand, and I do not claim to omnipotently know all context. Also, unless otherwise told by parties involved, all names will be pseudonyms besides my own. These names have been changed to protect the innocent. With this, the past is prologue, and my humble return to videos after a 6-year absence shall begin with the background leading up to the spark that ignited the powder keg and set me on my own course out of the Risembool Rangers. This issue begins with two antagonists, an engaged couple who I will call Boris and Doris, who were normal members of the Rangers. While they were generally amicable and easygoing, there were statements made by them intermittently that were warning signs. These statements usually centered around their religious beliefs and being thankful for world events that they perceived as being supported by their religious beliefs. Though they were not direct about it, they implied through both omission and leading statements that they were better than others who weren't thankful or disagreed with their position. They also wrote in extremely patronizing ways. Now, this would not be enough for me to make a video. It is my own personal altercations with Boris and Doris, as well as altercations they had with my good friend, Mildra, and the fallout from those altercations that have brought me here today. The wrong feeling became more concrete instead of being something ephemeral with their conduct. And this was truly cemented in my first direct altercation with Boris. I had made an innocuous offhand comment to another member of the Risembool Rangers regarding a discussion about weapons of war throughout history. Boris, who was not originally a part of the conversation, interjected, making a claim and stating my position was false. As the conversation went forth, he failed to address my position at all, instead making qualifying statements that amounted to moving the goalposts, recontextualizing my position overall in a way that could be considered strawman arguments, and even bringing forth red herrings and non sequiturs, and all the time never once directly confronting my position. In the end, the conflict was stopped by the moderation team, who asked us both to take the conversation to direct message if we wanted to continue. Neither of us did so. Things were quiet for a while from that point, until a different discussion among the Rangers and the moderation team in general was happening, where they were talking about making a creative writing group. A couple of the moderators, who are my personal friends, I'll call them Snarky and Sneaky, were discussing whether the group should be made within the Discord server for the Risembool Rangers, or if a separate server should be made. This was due to the fact that they acknowledged that some writers may have been writing materials that violate the rules established in the Risembool Rangers Discord server. Specifically, the rule, do not submit or link to not safe for work materials. This rule also covers such things as swearing and cursing. So I then brought up to them the fact that the moderation team has allowed, in the past, multiple members of the Rangers, including other moderators, to link to materials containing heavy language so long as they marked it with a heavy language warning, so people would be properly informed before following the link. This is due to the fact that many members of the Rangers have videos they create, or Twitch streams, or any other material of that sort. And some of the materials in those videos and video games may have that type of language. However, Doris disagreed, and did so in a very condescending fashion. She stated that such an option wasn't covered in the rules, and shouldn't be considered. And when I countered that in practice, it was allowed in limited circumstances, she stated that she didn't care what other people had done, but that when she made an agreement to something, she stuck to every part of it. The statement implying that by allowing exceptions, those who received exceptions were lesser than her. Extremely condescending. I then included the monastery live streams, specifically things like Valley of the Judged or Geek Watch, as examples of exceptions that had been made. And she reiterated her statement, which would now directly imply that the monastery and its videos and live streams shouldn't be given such an exception unless the monastery cleaned up its act. And this is the first time that Mildred himself got involved. He contacted Doris in DMs. He didn't want to have an already contentious argument occurring in the Rangers to explode further. He wanted to deal with it privately. He confronted her attitude, and she deflected, stating she never mentioned any single group or person and instead was speaking generically, until someone else, namely myself, brought up the monastery. And anyone who has watched Mildred's videos before, he speaks very directly and straightforward, and he doesn't sugarcoat his speech. And he types the same way. This is important to note for later context. Afterward, Doris was admonished for attempting to moderate the actions of other members when she herself is not a part of the moderation team, also known as mini-modding. It was at this point that the demeanors of both Boris and Doris were becoming more obvious to me, and I distanced myself from interacting with them to prevent from becoming embroiled in their antics. The big event, the one that caused all the fallout which led to this video, was when Boris decided to once again intervene in a conversation he was not part of, and well after the conversation had finished. A member of the Rangers was commenting on the Trigun Stampede reveal, stating that the old Trigun was cooler and better. Mildred responded to the statement that this person was being a grognard, and that this person should allow the new Trigun Stampede to succeed or fail on its own merits, instead of holding it to the standards of the original Trigun. Their conversation ended. Neither Mildred nor this other member were being antagonistic, nor did they become vitriolic. Boris, and a third member of the Rangers now involved in all this, decided to chastise Mildred for allegedly attacking the person he had previously spoken to. Mildred was accused of being an e-bully, and was told that all opinions are valid. Mildred responded that his response was critical, but not an attack, and Boris and the second member said that his comments could be perceived as combative and insulting. Mildred attempted, repeatedly, to end the conversation because he didn't want the argument to trail out, and Boris and this other member attempted to Kafka trap him, stating that it was a sign of guilt that he wanted to end the conversation. Eventually, Mildred, fed up with these two, left the Risembool Rangers server. I bookended the conversation, calling out Boris and this other member with my own brand of sarcasm and spite, as you all may be aware of. If you want the exact set of messages, there will be a version with all profile names and pictures except my own and Mildred's, edited out, in an imager, I don't know how that's fucking pronounced, and fuck it, in my description box. Afterward, Boris and the other involved member were banned from the Risembool Rangers Discord server. If this were all, this video wouldn't exist. However, after both of them were banned, Doris, who was still in the Rangers, made a large, splashy statement in the general chat about how the moderators were allegedly showing favoritism and condoning bullying, and then she left the server voluntarily. And so that's the spark that hit the fuse. There was apparently a week-long process of the moderator team having to discuss and talk with Doris and Boris repeatedly, including voice calls with them. There was even a point where my friend Sneaky, along with two other moderators, including the head moderator that I will call Archon, had a discussion with Mildred and myself. We discussed our various altercations with Boris and Doris, and also stated that in no uncertain terms, we both believed that if Boris and Doris returned, we would not be the only people they attempted to bully into submission using their false righteousness and purity tests. At the end of that discussion, both Mildred and myself had felt that the situation was done, that Boris and Doris would not be returning. Instead, we were informed only a scant few days later that both had been reinstated at the request of Vic Mignogna himself, and they had even claimed that Mildred had bullied Doris because of the direct and frank way he had spoken with her in a direct message, even though in the conversation with Sneaky and Archon, Mildred had already informed them of these DMs and how he spoke. As previously stated, Vic is a kind and caring soul, but in this case, I would say that he was kind and caring to his own detriment. At that point, I resolved not to return to the Rangers. Mildred has told me he will be returning, and as of the recording of this video, has already returned, as he did not want to burn bridges with the many friends we've made. But my own principles on this miscarriage of justice prevent me from returning. Now that should be the end of the story. It really should have been. But as the old adage goes, things got worse. After the last revelation regarding Boris and Doris bans being overturned, my moderator friend Snarky came to both Mildred and myself with a statement that smacked of her being forced into apologizing for alleged failures as a moderator, failing to uphold established rules, and how that somehow caused the banning of Doris and Boris to be a mistake and invalid. To me, the entire statement and sentiment behind it was to make Snarky into a scapegoat, to have her take the fall. Even further, another moderator I consider a friend, whom I shall call Cypher, had banned Boris on his Twitch channel. Boris, thinking that the ban reversal means everything is water under the bridge, attempted to go to Cypher's Twitch stream at some point, found he was banned, and whined to Archon. Archon berated Cypher, telling him that his actions were childish, and that she hoped that the moderators were above that type of retaliatory behavior. That's right. Archon sought to control Cypher's personal Twitch channel. That was not associated with the Risembool Rangers, which is extremely wrong. It's his personal channel. He should be able to control it. And to any of you who know me, from any of my videos, from the videos I've co-hosted with Mildred, to any personal interactions you may have had with me, you know I do not take injustice against my friends, the people I love, lightly. In a whirlwind of discussion with Snarky, and with another moderator from the Risembool Rangers, who I will call Lady, I stated in no uncertain terms that this was a massive injustice, that the presence of Boris and Doris would threaten to destroy the server, and that I could not sit idly by and not try to do something to criticize and address the situation. Snarky and Lady both have begged me not to make this video, not to spread these words, not to somehow give Vic's detractors even more ammunition, even though this criticism reflects on the actions taken, not the people involved. Furthermore, during those discussions, my feeling regarding Snarky being turned into a scapegoat was confirmed. I learned that she had nearly been asked to step down from moderation, even though she had done nothing wrong. I can't abide by any of these injustices, and with that said, I will state exactly why Boris and Doris being present is detrimental to the Risembool Rangers. It is a combination of how welcoming the Rangers are, and how the purity tests from Boris and Doris will only drive more Rangers away. Boris and Doris are the beginning of a purity spiral, a self-consuming process whereby nuance and discussion are put by the wayside as the all-consuming concern becomes who is the most pure within the community. It is a process that awards extremism and pushes out the reasonable. The reason these two are the start of a purity spiral is that they clothed themselves in false virtue, complained to the highest authority that they were the victims, and were exonerated, thus convincing them that they're purer than thou compared to all others. Because the Rangers are so tolerant to others, this behavior, since it appears virtuous on the surface, even if it is only on the surface level, is not something that can be easily punished or checked unless it is used as a blatant cudgel, like in the times Boris and Doris were reprimanded for attempting to moderate other Rangers. Both this beginning of the purity spiral and the fact that the Rangers are now falling headlong into the paradox of tolerance will ultimately lead to the Rangers being torn apart from within, and the fan group being a skeletonized shell of what it once was, where only the pure remain. Some of you may ask, why bother then if they have so poorly bungled moderation? Why bother when even Vic is willing to allow these holier-than-thou purity-obsessed charlatans to remain? A good question, but one you should all know the answer to. I seek to address this wrongdoing and have it corrected, because a good community removes bad elements in order to keep that community healthy. And I still believe that despite the current mistakes, the community is still good. So this is my treatise to the Risembool Rangers and anyone else who might watch this video. Please, remove the bad actors from your midst. Correct this mistake. Boris and Doris do not deserve to remain due to their attempts to drag others into their game of purer than thou, and they don't deserve to be tolerated simply because they cloth themselves in seeming virtue. To quote a book series I love, mind what people do, not only what they say, for deeds will betray the lie. Their actions more than confirm that they have acted counter to the values of the Risembool Rangers community, and it will cause the community to fracture and crumble. And with that, we reach today. I am not returning to the Rangers, likely ever. Even if they resolved every issue I've detailed, and even if they removed all the bad actors, my trust of their system has been broken, and it will take a long time to restore such trust. However, that is my own personal issue. I encourage others to interact and even join the Rangers if you are a fan of Vic Mignogna and his works. Now, if you want a more detailed understanding of purity spirals, I recommend the video I have linked in the description box by Dev of Short Fat Otaku. And with that, my not so noble return to videos comes to an end. I don't know if there will be more videos after this. This may be the only video I make for another 6 years. So, I hope you all have a wonderful day or night. And remember, you do not only seek the truth seeks you.